Morning all. Well, good afternoon actually, because it's now midday. How is everyone today?
We're fabulous today, Jonathan. Flaming boiling, but we're fabulous.
Yes, it is rather sweltering. So welcome to Supernatural Magazine. Welcome to Let's Chat, and a very special welcome to Steve Parsons, who is joining us live from in between us, probably slightly further north than me, than Lara is south. I don't know what I'm saying now. I've lost the plot.
I'm certainly a lot further west.
Yes. So I'm right down the bottom of
Let's
England.
settle on that. Let's settle on being far to the west of you both.
So
Okay.
Lara, what temperature have you got at the moment? I think I'm about 25 degrees at the moment.
Oh, I'm going to actually have a look here because it was quite low yesterday, let me tell you. I usually check it every morning. Do you know that? And I haven't done it today. So let's see. It's I think it's 26 degrees down in Cardiff, like where it was before, but it's 20 degrees up here because I'm now in Scotland, Steve. I don't know if you knew that, but I'm back up in Scotland.
I do. Well, where is it, balmy 28?
Oh, wow. It is. There you go.
I think I must be something like
which, as you know, is very unusual for Wales.
Exactly. So I love that. He sounds like a Dalek, right? He's got asteroids on his T-shirt. This is going to be a great talk.
The only thing I can say is I use a Mac and it's forcing me on Chrome. It won't work with Safari. Maybe
it needs to be Google Chrome that you go through.
I'm on Google Chrome.
Oh, you're on Google Chrome. Oh, well.
There we are.
Oh well.
It's the old Apple versus Google battle going on inside my machine.
I think so. I've already been growling at Jonathan between Google Calendars and Gmail and all the iMac stuff, because like you, I'm on an iMac as well. It's just not it's not going very well today, Jonathan. However,
we are having technological problems. It's obviously the heat is putting everything into meltdown. But today's topic, we are going to be talking whether it is any point in training up ghost hunters or paranormal investigators who are in private groups. And so we are joined by Steve. Now, Steve, you have the most impressive biographies I've ever seen. They run over several pages. I'm doing a short one, but this will take half the program. An investigator, researcher for ghost and hauntings and related human experiences, author of 3 books and numerous published articles on ghost hunting and related subjects, cited and referenced in many more. A regular speaker at conferences and conventions throughout the UK, Ireland, and the USA. In front of a camera, presented behind the scenes. It's really impressive. That was a short one.
Yeah, no, I'm a goater. Let's leave it at that.
So what we like to call you is the godfather of ghost hunting.
I love that.
Probably because of my advancing years now.
So how long have you been researching the paranormal?
Well, since I was a child, since sort of late single years, 8, 9, 10. I had an interest in looking for ghosts on holiday. I would always ask my parents if they make me too spooky to look for this. As a full-time researcher, about 30 years. So, can it total 50 years?
Wow.
I know. Scary. Scary when you say it out loud.
That is quite impressive. And you must have noticed a massive change in the very early years when they were probably in the shadow of Harry Price, and ghost hunting was something that was pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-quirky, but definitely not mainstream. And now it's media.
Well, I mean, back when we first went, I mean, Harry talked to the books by Tim Don and Drew Green and some of Thurston and some of the others. And for me, it seemed like ghost hunting was going to be a very simple proposition. You just went to a stately home or a manor, you sat on the stairs, and at midnight the ghost would appear.
Yes.
I'm done. Move on. And I realised frustratingly that actually that's not the case, and that do not appear on this case at night, just your sitter. And I said, is that strange? And that realization led to try to understand why that they did appear, and that led me into looking at techniques and methods and what it was that these people were doing in order to how were they evidencing their experiences instead of the early investigators merely recorded them in books. But Price was fairly unique in that along with some of the other early investigators, they started to develop these ghost hits in rather bag old leather case. And they had interesting things like jar murky, Hank's wire string, and lycopodium powder that could be sprinkled. And that, I mean, what child wouldn't be fascinated by jars of mercury and hanks of bell wire and batteries? And I started to build my own ghost hunting kits based upon those very early ones, and they didn't work either. I still didn't catch a ghost on the stairs at midnight. But as technology improved and my interest grew, then you start to look at a much more scientific approach that we were taught at school. Of course, we're all taught to how to do basics and experiments at school. You design an experiment by considering hypothesis you want to test, experiment you want to test the hypothesis, working at the result, and you use where those results take you. And so we started to use an approach of science, and I think hopefully still do that to this day.
What we're going to talk to you today about is the training of groups, paranormal groups. Whether the argument really is that because you enter a subject like ghost hunting. Some is that your cat?
It's a ghost hunting cat.
Is it effective?
It's a ghost detecting.
Oh.
It's a ghost detecting cat.
Is it the equivalent of a Boo Buddy? I've just used a brand name.
Yeah.
Cat.
We'll talk about it later. But...
Okay. So the argument is that obviously when groups nowadays get together, they've seen it on TV, they're very interested in the subject matter. They come with preconceived ideas about how investigations should take place because they've seen it on TV. And really, they've got a mission, they've got an objective. And really, the approach of scientific objectivity is not really going to be entering into it. Is that where we're coming from?
What we've reached a bizarre situation since about the early 2000s, with the most haunted here in the UK, which was amongst the very first, is the realization that anybody can go ghosting. Of course, prior it was very much the domain nerd, and it was even people like to read about didn't think that had access or didn't it was for that. They discovered with the art of television, ordinary for a cameraman, a makeup lady, a television presenter, seemingly ordinary people could just wander around and get evidence of the paranormal. And this led to the inevitable sort of explosion in the ghost hunting groups that followed here in the UK and then latterly in America with their own series, The Ghost Hunters. But unfortunately, that it coincides with the events of social media, and people has moved into seeing things television, realizing simple things were. They didn't necessarily look very hard or beyond television for methodology that should be applied. And so the television approach of wandering around with a camera, something that flashed or became the norm. Now, that also unfortunately coincides with organizations like the Society for Psychical Research, like mainstream academia, parapsychology, moving away from the ghost hunting community and becoming more psychology and more psyche oriented, more academically oriented, and really giving the protection for the thing is study, which had all been an important nature of research at that point. And you have this sort of dual-pronged approach where there is a television method, a new method being demonstrated, but at the same time, you have a lack of reach out, a lack of direction coming from science, from academia, from those who could have the resources to provide and to offer out to guide these people. And so, not unexpectedly, they talk to another in pages and in internet forums where they discuss, their methods, what they're finding, and you end up with a bit of a wheel, which leads the situation we're in today.
Yes, I mean, one of the problems then is I noticed, particularly on social media, is that the way research is presented is really quite sensationalist. It's like, I've got a better picture of a ghost than you've got. My medium picked up more stuff than your medium picked up. My location is much more haunted than your location, with no kind of quantitative analysis or qualitative analysis about what they're actually getting. So do you think there's any mechanism where they can find a body that they can then try and feed some of the research that they do collect back into a better form?
That would be the ideal, because many of the greatest discoveries in science have come from amateur researchers feeding into the professional researchers, the academic researchers. We can look at archaeology and astronomy as two very simple examples of that. And we should, by now, with 1,000 groups in the UK, back to about 12 to 15,000 Paul, or lockdown go to almost every week onto the with vision cameras and audio recording. We should be seeing they should be in the right place at the time. But what's their end up is their gauge battle with one another for fame and for likes and for shares and followers and monetizing their streams. And you see innumerable Facebook Live ghost investigations now that really are a voyeuristic fest. It's become, ghost hunting has become a kind of interactive, scary movie. Instead of going to the cinema or friends Saturday the bit scared, we can either go along those and participate in ghost investigation. That could be a kind of a very massive as well. Or we could increasingly lock down. We can now go on Facebook at others doing it, and we can comment and we can screenshot at the demons and the phantoms that we're seeing. And it's a great loss to psychical research, because the potential to make breakthroughs and to push our understanding of the subject further has never been greater than it is now. We have the technology, we have the numbers of people, we have the relation. They're all just playing with it.
So I think what the market's needing is really a vision, because at the moment the great drive is Facebook. Facebook is the great deliverer of acceptance. So you put something on Facebook, you get a lot of attention, and so you should think, oh, this is good. And if you sent something off to a professional organization, they would probably go, that's right. And so you are more inclined to feed into Facebook rather than feed up into any other organization.
Well, Facebook and the other platforms are incredibly sycophantic. That you can get away with just wandering around an old building in the dead of night, and people are going, you will have people buttering your ego and flattering you and saying scared or what they say. If you submit an investigation report to an organization like SAP or Society for Research, it would take to a year for them to publish that investigative report, and that there would be many deep and probing critical questions being asked about your methodology. Why did you do that? Why did you do it that way? What were your findings? Could those findings have been something else? And most people don't want that level of scrutiny. They much rather lie on the back and have the tummy tickled by their thousands of followers.
Yeah.
It's a fame-led thing that we see on so many other programs. We have some programs where, back in the day when I was a child, people say, what to be growing up, and you mentioned or an astronaut or doctor, or now people say, I want to be famous, I want to be an influence on social media.
Yeah, we're getting quite a few comments at the moment, which some of them I'll come back to because they're direct questions to you, slightly off subjects that matter. And someone has said, Amanda has said about the re-emergence of pesky orbs, which I'm going to suggest we have an entire program about, because I've got a lot to say about orbs, and your research on it is quite honestly groundbreaking. And basically, I don't think any paranormal group should even go into a haunted location until they've got a copy of your work with parascience.
The best thing about that orb thing is it was blinding this experiment, because we seen them too. When we started using dim cameras, we came across the same manner, and initially were equally pulled by. But we started to get them quite to the point where the paranormal shouldn't be that often. So there was clearly something happening. Either the digital camera represented the world's most brilliant ghost hunting or paranormal tool, or we were dealing with something normal. And how could we? And it was back to basic science. How could we test that idea? But what was the best part about that is after we'd spent 18 months dutifully taking all of these graphs with the camera and submitted the results, an email said it was amazing. I can be convinced of what you've done. The third pick, I can see it in the auto. And you realise that some people, it doesn't matter where you aim, you'll always miss.
That is the problem, is that there will be a section of the public who will just not want to listen to this at all. And unfortunately...
The thing is, though, sorry, Jonathan. The thing is, though, it's incredibly compelling. If you capture an orb, if you've been sitting there for hours on end and nothing's happening, and then this drifts to your camera or capture it on photograph, or been listening to, radio chattering to life and apparently answering your questions. It's a bit, I could see the boxes crack cocaine, those sponsors. Are incredibly compelling. I've sat there in the middle of the night watching a group using a ghost box or some other device, and even found myself sort of straining to hear a response and getting carried away with it, and then stop it now. It is incredibly, compelling. It's crack cocaine for ghost hunters. Autographs and thing. We sat there when you interested in the equipment, just in their state of screen, sort of look around and sort of seeing what's actually happening. A white blob floats past. The first time it happens, I remember back to the first time it happened with us. It was like, whoa, what the heck? It's it's an exciting. And if you choose then not to look any further, or all your followers are saying that they can see, that Zozo, or they can see faces in it, or real dust doesn't go that way, or up or down, side to side, doesn't have eggs, and it can be incredibly compelling.
I do remember the very first time I encountered the orb phenomena, and I was being dragged onto a ghost hunt by our very good friend Norrie, and I was in Netley Abbey, and customers were coming up to me saying, "Oh, I've got a picture of an orb," and I was going, "Norrie, what's an orb?" And this is like almost 18 years ago, and she explained, "Oh, it's spirit manifestation." I was like, "But this is just an object out of focus," because I just spent a year a laser research technology site where I was drilling holes in glass ampules, having to look down very tiny things down a microscope, and I was constantly seeing things out of the focal plane, and light reflected off those objects, and I was it's an object out of focus. I don't understand why people thinking this is. So anyway, But what we needed was then the research, which you did, which could then actually show that, because you can't explain focal planes. And I still see people today when they see smoke or objects in any photograph, the concept of depth just doesn't. It's over someone's head. It's like, that's 2 meters. That's over 5 meters. How do you know where this object is? It could be 2 centimeters away from you. You don't know depth.
That was, I mean, I think the biggest breakthrough for us happened in the television shoot. We would use fixed CCTV cameras that a ring of infrared around it, and saw the white thing sting up and down across the chair. And I said, right, this is our big chance, because these things were like, they were like buses in London. You know, so we sent investigators in to try and work out the distance, and then we ended up with it was actually a laser device that spun a disc of like a cone of laser light, and we had an acetate that had distance rings, and we eventually realized that these damn things weren't out across them, they were in 2 centimeters of the camera. You know, they were very close camera, and you know, groups like App, Walton and App at the same time, he was throwing in them and stuff down in front and were flashes. We could see them with raindrops and snowflakes and cigarette smoke. We knew what we were dealing with, something normal, but the difficulty is trying to prove it. You know, it's easy to sit back and go, oh yeah, that's a spider, and but in order to convince somebody, you have to design an experiment and take on board in the experimental environment all the possible objections. And this is where it's what we took and the breakthrough, of course. And Food announced that they were releasing a 3D camera, because up until that point we'd had ideas of 3-dimensional photography using stereo cameras. But the difficulty was that with the fully automatic settings that investigators were using when they were capturing the orbs, each camera could actually take a similar photograph, but at 2 completely different settings. And with the Fuji camera, the microchip was in the same things for both the left and right, which meant you could act for the first time 2 identical bits with regard to the settings. And quite a considerable amount of phone emailing Fuji, initially in the UK and then latterly Japan, and they sent us a pre-production model at extortionate cost, which allowed us to start doing the experiment.
Let's go back to the original subject, because otherwise we'll end up talking about orbs all day. The training of paranormal groups. Now, I've got some examples to put up that you want to talk about. What do you want to start with, the photographs or the video?
I'll start with a photograph. Okay.
So I've got this one.
Well, this photograph is it's actually a recent photograph from a really established group. And this is, they put this photograph up on I won't name them, but they put this photograph up on their social media feed quite recently, boasting about the vast range of scientific equipment that they operate with and that they use. Now, some of it actually is quite useful equipment. You have up on the right side, Bandy Bear, yellow on its imaging cap. And I would probably suggest that the only item I can see that's a potential use is another thermometer, front and middle center. But the rest of it, we have Ouija boards which hark back to spiritualism. There's a plasma ball which they probably got for Christmas. It looks impressive, and it is impressive if you're a customer or even if you're an investigator. This group is actually an interesting group to talk about, because they formed up a year or so with their, and they had probably do have very good intention. They did some training. They found his online courses at the so now one of them are defined psychologists and demonologists. And I use that as an example because therein lies the problem. They wanted, when they started out, they wanted training. They knew that they needed something. They just didn't know what questions to ask or where to ask it. And this, so, I mean, for the last 2 or 3 years, since 2016, I've been haranguing the Society for Psychical Research, saying, and ASAP too, and others, that you need to reach out. There is this community of people. You are looking, sit in your house and not reaching out, provide the resource that you have available to them. And fortunately, certainly I mean, ASAP has always had its, since it was formed in the early 80s, an in-house investigator training program. The SPR never had such a package, but now, fortunately, it should have happened by now, but it can't because we're locked down. They have, you know, the great old mean creaking lifelong.
Then we have another picture. If you want to explain this one.
Well, it's almost explained. This is again, I won't, but they're not UK made. Conduct an investigation, and as part of the investigation process, they form this ring, and they dance around, summoning the spirit energy into the ring to communicate with them. I think if you look at the second photo, the next photograph in the sequence, they're actually dancing around a collection of, oh, that's all right. But similarly, the group in the previous photograph were dancing around a collection of the same device you have in the MF, you have with a flashlight on it. Now, this seeing, you know, spirit energy into the circle, or join with them. These methods that derive primarily from spiritualism, where people would you know, sing rousing hymns and songs at the start of the commencement of the séance, and you have a lot of ghost investigation groups that are highly spiritual in the way they put the experience. You know, you have the resident media who'll bathe everybody in light, and you can't guard who waits almost with the floodlights on. You see this with almost those photographs in the third one that popped up, and put it back up again now. You see this here. You have, you know, just another example of modern ghost hunting. You have the devices at the front, where probably nobody in the room realizes what they're doing or why they're doing it. They're just waiting for it to do something, flash or bleep. You have some LED candles, which is always a good thing, so they don't go down the weed. Top of the weed, you can see another, you know, 2 meth meter. I don't know whether it's lieu of on shed, well as a shed, but this is what you in modern investigation. You see this blending together, this voodoo mixture of spiritualism and pseudoscience.
So people have been commenting, and someone has just asked, and I'll get the comment up. What would you recommend as a piece of technology that you find most reliable?
Well, you know, the answer everybody usually gives here is a notebook and pen. And I noticed a comment that just said exactly that. Actually, I would say use your 5 is first. You know, this fashion, when somebody, what really as investigator to do is to understand experience somebody had. And the best to do that is find experience itself, because you will understand it better. God gave us 5 fairly good senses that most of the time they work reasonably well. So use them first of all. If we look at technology, I'm going to be a little cheeky. I'm going to say that I don't count pen and paper as technology. But if we look at something with a battery in it, then I've always advocated that there is one area of environmental environment which we have some record of an seeming anomaly that coincides with subjective personal areas of another potentially paranormal phenomena, and that's temperature. We do have, from the earliest seance days, through the ghost hunts of Price, through the works of Tyrrell and others, and then latterly to parascience, episodes in which the temperature is doing something extremely unusual, something that it shouldn't ordinarily do. At this time, people reporting an apparition or some anomalous phenomena. That seems to be fairly uniform. There aren't many accounts of it, but the accounts that do exist are come from well calibrated, well measured items of equipment, thermometers. And I agree with what Mark English is saying now. Beyond that, a camera. I've just been writing a piece for the SPR about photography, and the photography during a or film, you see that grail who comes as experience. It's the most active evidence, and it still is for many people. However, we're in a situation now where, because of the ease with which we can make ghosts appear on still photographs and on video, we can take a picture. I can take a picture with my smartphone camera, and instantaneously pop it onto it. I drop it into a video very conveniently. And rather than photography now becoming, that holy grail item for the ghost hunter, it's now every time you see something that's moderately convincing, the first thing that you will say, that's Photoshop or it's an app. We can't trust photography or video any longer like we used to be able to. There is people who will argue about brown rain, the brown leg rain, and what tulips case, or the other famous photos that do exist, but they still change us and they'll interest us. Photographs that appear to be equally good or surpass that, we will now dismiss with a wave of the hand and as photoshopped, or it's merely an app, and unfortunately they are. Yeah. Photography, it is still an essential. With video essential, and photography, because with video you have the combination sound and check, and that does allow you to demonstrate example. If you put an audio reading of phantom footsteps along a deserted corridor, well, without the accompanying video, you can't show that the corridor was in fact abandoned and desolate at the time that the footsteps occurred. So I would always advocate. In fact, I was given the task by the SPR this year to put together a series of standardized investigation for investigation team, created SPR investigations, and we let the range of equipment that was available. What we actually needed to put somebody in and triage a case. So you're not going in and conducting a full investigation, but you're going along and making an assessment of, is this worth pursuing, or getting some basic information to triage it. And what we decided upon was a video camera, a still camera, an audio recorder, a thermohygrometer to simulate temperature and humidity, and that's put the risk in 5 cents. But that's it. We gather.
People have been commenting about the audio. We did mention
I can't do anything about that.
Sometimes it clears up, and basically, because I was trying to work out the phenomenological aspects of what's been going on, And I've noticed that every time Gillian comments, it clears up. So we have a direct causal link that as long as Gillian keeps commenting, it'll clear up.
Keep commenting, Gillian.
I also have noticed, I was watching you thinking, is it motion? In fact, that's actually JPEG compression trying to basically process the picture, and therefore it's deteriorating the sound of the process. But it does seem to be random events at the moment. So 1 minute is good and then it clears up.
I've Zoom used the other. This is the first I've been counting. I think probably just those. Every company in every industry is probably on doing work-related conferences at the moment. We're just unlucky with the bandwidth because I live out. I live out in the country, so bandwidth, we're at the end of the pipe.
Pitch is all right. It's just every now and then you just, as you said, people said turning into Dalek, but as you pointed out, you'd rather be a Cyberman. Shall we play the video that you wanted to play? Right, it's about a minute or something.
Yeah, let's give them let's have a break.
This is the outbreak. Right, enjoy.
It's almost like they're going to be on their own.
Don't try this at home, whatever you do.
Definitely. Do not try this at home unless you are sort of experienced within the paranormal. Okay, this is a first for us, and we don't know what's going to happen. Andrew, can you hear me?
Yeah, right now I can.
Okay, put your white noise on.
Okay, here we go.
I can actually hear the white noise. That must be incredibly loud for Andrew right now.
Yeah, I can hear it from here.
Yeah, I can actually, yeah.
That's it, guys. He's ready. Okay, Andrew, the experiment has now started. Good luck, Andrew.
The vision that I had yesterday was not a very nice one. It was of Andrew being possessed, looking up at us with a really evil face and then coming at us. So I have actually been quite worried, thinking that that is a possibility, but we're prepared for that.
So you basically had a premonition that this was all going to go wrong.
Yeah.
My God, Alex.
I know, I really hope that I'm wrong.
I really do as well.
So, what was that about?
Well, science. This is what happens when people are playing to their audience. They'd obviously heard of the Gansfeld. In fact, they were inspired by the next piece of video footage, and of course, whenever they see good science, is always about replication. So what you saw from PXT was science because we're replicating an earlier experiment to release. So from the next show, see what they were replicating.
Right, shall I play this one? We'll see what they were replicating.
Tell me what your name is. Who are you?
So do you want to try and explain that, just in case anyone looked at that and thought, what was that about?
You know what? I kind of wish I could. I invite comments. What does anybody think it is? Help. What you see there, the title, what they're doing, the second clip, which was the earlier of the two clips, was Gansfeld. They'd seen this idea of the Gansfeld experiment, which is used by psychologists and parapsychologists to study sort of conscious state, and they've taken and flipped it into, to use the term, spirit expression. Now, the American group, which was second, that was the only example that I think they were very first. You got Che Guevara and the guy in the COVID-19 mask. Then PXTV, you know, they saw this, they glammed it up. You know, don't try this at home. Don't try it. It's dangerous. We're skilled investigators. It's really dangerous. And the best about that is foot mask blindfold. The psychic who's in the guard is still using his smartphone throughout. He'll access his smartphone whilst folding. Now, I would say that's a paranormal superpower. But this is, I mean, it's an example of how extreme it is becoming, where they're taking science. Now, to somebody in the audience who perhaps is interested but doesn't have anywhere to turn, see this, look at Gaffeld, so Google awareness following. Oh, this is brilliant. You know, but these guys not doing investigation, not sensationalist rubbish. They're ducting the old science. And of course, it's not real science. It's sensationalist rubbish designed. You know, it's clickbait. It's visual clickbait, but it's being presented as pseudoscience. And there's, you know, we it's easy to criticize these groups, but it's wrong to criticize them at the same time, because, you know, yes, there are people in there who love having their ego massaged by thousands of followers, monetizing, you know, and making a living out of it. But in a month, there are a number of people who've got, like you, you know, a genuine interest in the subject and a genuine desire to understand perhaps their own experiences or experiences they've read about or seen or people have told them about. But it's been a lack of leadership by academia, by parapsychology. There's been a lack of resources. The new books that have come, you know, is huge bestseller. Zach Gibbons donating for these, which, I mean, you know, the fact he plagiarized in May, the information in it is still actually quite good. I was asked to review Zach Bagan's book last year, and I got criticised by some because I said, yeah, you know, we have issues with Zach. What he says and what he does is highly contentious. He obviously didn't write the book, and that came out later that it was written, ghost written, can we say? But if you buy a copy and read, because it won't you only harm, because information is actually generally good and useful information. You know, we can view about the author, we can view about the problem that he had. You're not going to do yourself any harm if you read a copy of Zach Bagan's. I can't even believe I'm not promoting it. This is the book I should be promoting, of course. But, you know, Zach's book won't do you any harm, and it's going to sell. You know, it's going to be a big seller. But most people don't read the books. They'll buy the book, they'll flip through it, they'll throw it in the bookshelf, and then they'll watch the next episode of Ghost Adventures because it's easy to do. Like with Tring. The SR now offers Investigator Tring. ASAP is offered Investigator Tring. And over in the States, the RAF have offered of good quality courses out. But people want that. What people want is instantaneous ghost hunting glory. And why should they pay anybody anything at all? Because, you know, are there any experts in the paranormal? I'd rather spend my £25 on this new device that flashes lights at me and lets ghosts talk to me. So it's, you know, it's not just the lack of resource or the lack of outreach that's coming from organisations like, you know, academia, ASAP, and the SPR. Also a complete unwillingness on behalf of those hunting unity to question what is that seeing, doing, and is there a way? Can this experience, can the measurements getting useful? And you know, it's frustrating. You see good quality investigations and good quality investigators being wasted at the foot of commercialism and the tummy massaging of social media.
So, I mean, as you pointed out, there is a definitive need in the science abhors a vacuum. Don't worry, we're going to plug that in a minute. In science, nature abhors a vacuum, and of course, if we allow Facebook and media to pump in pseudoscience, then that will proliferate because there is no proper science being fed in. So it is a responsibility for the organization to really almost do outreach work to the groups to say, look, there's a better way of doing it. And as you pointed out, I mean, to me, that last video we showed was a mixture of a pseudo Gansfeld experiment and the very successful experiment that showed that people using a Ouija board or planchette blindfolded produced completely random results. Let's mix them all up. Let's put gas masks on the people instead of blindfolds. And without this sort of science behind why you're doing that, you're basically just picking things that look good for camera, and there's no science behind it.
This is impressive. When you're putting it for your market on YouTube or social media, it looks like you know what you're doing. You know, you can use impressive words like pareidolia or matrixing. You know, I mean, matrixing. In fact, they're creating words like matrixing. Matrixing comes about from it's pareidolia, isn't it?
I've not heard that. What is matrixing?
Matrixing is essentially, I think it was Zach Bagan's description of letting your brain make it up. It's pareidolia, more than visual pareidolia, even matrix. I think psychology would call a struct.
Right. That's convenient.
Right.
Go on, carry on.
No, I was Dalek.
I'll bring back Lara. Hello, Lara.
Hi. No, I've just
been sitting listening to all of this.
Listening, fascinated. I can't see the title of your book there, Steve.
Right.
Oh, did you miss it?
Yeah.
Thank you for the plug. What I will do, I have got this. So if anyone wants to look at the books written by Steve, I would thoroughly recommend the book Ghostology, The Art of the Ghost Hunter. But then your work on infrasound, which I think is another worth you coming on and talking about that. And then the guidance notes for the investigators of spontaneous cases. I mean, it's such a catchy phrase. Couldn't they think of anything? You know, you've got Ghostology, ParaQ6, and then guidance notes for investigators of spontaneous cases.
You're absolutely right. The middle book was commissioned by the SPR, and is actually there's a second one that deals with the equipment use for the investigators of spontaneous cases. We realised that the title was because we had to explain to people what a spontaneous was. It was to people investigate spontaneous cases. So it has been reprinted, or it's being reprint, and it was some guidance for investigators of ghosts, appearance, haunts, and related phenomena, because the people who investigate spontaneous cases didn't know what they were, and that in itself, I think, you know, you said before that there is a duty of care and responsibility on organisations like the SPR and ASAP and others to reach out and be a resource. But I would argue that they weren't reaching out to me when I started. You know, I had to seek out the information. I went to libraries, I read the books. We didn't have internet. I suppose you look at things from all different directions now, and I've seen it with the kids. You see a difference in the generations. My son was given a homework assignment. It was a very simple, you know, what are the ecological conditions of the Cleddau River, which is the major river out here. He typed the question directly into Google verbatim. Google then threw, you know, it couldn't a direct answer to the question, gave her engines. He threw his hand and said, "It's not telling." Now, I think a great deal about the way that people look at or research things today. It's like an instantaneous, I have a question, I'll type my question into that, and the first thing I see will be the definitive answer. But, you know, when they type in ghost hunter, what are they going to get? They're not going to get the Society for Psychical Research or ASAP or the Ryan Institute or the Kersler Institute or Northampton. Going to get plumbers, or going to get, you know, so-called ghost YouTube channel. And they're going to take that as being good place, good method, and go with it.
It's a very good point, Steve, isn't it? They're not going to get like the terminology of ghost hunting, like you're saying, ASAP, you know, the society, supernatural society, that sort of thing, or even yourself. They're going to get sensationalists. They're going to get wannabes. They're going to get, it's a culmination of all the influencers out there, so-called influencers or self-proclaimed experts that actually probably wouldn't even know the first thing of ghost hunting if it smacked them straight between the eyes.
But yeah, it's a problem that I don't quite how we will ever solve it. The PR have moved huge to outreach. ASAP has always had, you know, investigative training and outreach, and has been quite proactive down the years. But the move has to come from both directions, and we don't have anything up our sleeves that can beat the power of the immediacy and the power of YouTube and Facebook. And, you know, we can set up stuff on, and the SPR at its own new channel. And ASAP to put some really useful resources. People access because they don't. There's no sea green room. There's no running around shrieking the demons. We don't have the sort of the magic, the kudos, the hocus pocus, and I don't know how it's going to change. It doesn't seem to be getting any better. But for me personally, I find that it's incredibly frustrating that currently we have about 10 to 15,000 people in the UK who are really well equipped, going places where people bring the experiences. So puts them in the right at the right time to what he may give us some, you know, good insight and understanding of these experiences that people call ghosts. And what they're doing instead is playing about on YouTube and social media. And that is, I don't know who's listening, but I mean, it is pissing the opportunity up a wall.
It is. And Tracy Green's also brought up a really good thing about even hiring places compared to 20 years ago to even do the research has just massively expanded, which as a medium, Tracy, I can totally understand. You know, when even doing the psychic fairs originally years ago, right, you could hire a room for like a tenner type thing, and then somebody catches on to that. Before you know it, it's like £200 for the same room type thing. So they capitalize on the interest of people wanting to look into stuff in this area. Absolutely.
Kimberly, go on.
I was going to say, I remember when I first moved to Pembrokeshire, you could have Carew Castle, the legend of the ghost hunting world out in West Wales. 100 quid for the night would get you the castle, the tar mill, breakfast, and now 300 quid, and you out at 2 in the morning and get the tile anymore.
So how much?
Sorry?
How much is it now?
350.
Wow, you see.
Kimberly has asked, Steve, what's the most frustrating part of ghost hunting nowadays for you? The technology or the people doing it?
The people. The technology we can deal with. You know, there's ghost hunters have always loved gadgets and toys, and you know, new devices will always come and go, and they can be relatively quickly dismissed. It's the unwillingness of the people. The people are our greatest resource, and there are lots of fantastic individuals people who get really intelligent questions, people who are their own to understand what's happened. But they don't seem to be being well led by the people at the tops of the groups. You see, most groups are led by some egocentric, individual who or someone who has monetized the stream, and what they're really doing is taking a cut of it. So many groups that call themselves not for profit. Well, look at I know how much the higher people are located, and the phone will tell me. I know how much they charge. You know how many people are going. It's simple to realize that not for profit is making. There's a large chunk of money go somewhere. That's fun, and I've encouraged groups in the past and supported groups to do public events to raise money to increase their equipment or increase their ability to hire locations to advance and use the monies to advance their research. What they're really doing at the moment is it's going into somebody's pocket.
That's very true. So we've got a few more minutes before we're going to end this broadcast. Steve, if people wanted, any groups out there who want to tighten their investigation techniques, what would you recommend they do?
I would. Do you know what? I'd recommend Ghostology, because Ghostology was the book I never planned to write. I always said that, what's the point in writing a book, because everybody else has written a book, and how would you know that, or why would mine be any better or any worse than anybody else's? And there have been some, Tony Cornell's book and others. But it about because I, along with Keith and some Ghostology, CB Ghost type packages. And rather than make people write, we series of handouts, and the book developed from the handouts. And it is, I designed it really for me. I designed it for the sort of information I needed when I was, starting out. The questions that I was asking, I was trying to answer those questions. And there are other fantastic books out there too. I mean, Ghostology, obviously I'm biased, but you've got Andrew Green's book, although it was written originally in the 1960s. Deal is still relevant. You've got Cornell's Investigator Paranormal, which is available, so in print is available. And though it is dated and some methods might be a little bit sketchy, and if all else fails, of course, the SPR have recently revamped their 50-year-old guidance notes for investigators of spontaneous cases. The title might be a little impenetrable, but the information in it is useful, concise, simple, how to maximize the potential. Because what I would really, my wish is for a group out there do job that do well to present parapsychologists something that really challenges, something really stops them dead in their tracks. And there's paraphologists are notorious to be, a little bit cynical, a little bit dismissive, a little bit hard-nosed, and I like to see them squirm. And someday, one group out there one day will do that, but they're not going to do it unless they up their game dramatically and stop waving around these pseudo-scientific, semi-spiritualist bits of electronic snake oil and claptrappery.
And there's a lot of that.
There is.
Steve, thank you so much for coming on and chatting about this. I definitely want to get you back on, talk about orbs, infrasound, and those groups who are currently, they're not even groups. We haven't even talked about the cat. We need to talk about the cat.
I know.
And we're going to talk about, hopefully, going to talk about the groups there, the YouTubers who are basically going in and just filming. They're not even ghost hunts. They're just to walk around in the dark, scaring people, which is well, yeah, it's fascinating. But I think we need to talk about that. So, Steve, thank you so much indeed for joining us. If you want any
And
more
I
information,
apologise for the audio.
Steve, I have to thank Jill, who wants to send in an invoice for the sound production. So thank you, Jill, for commenting. And every time she comments, your sound improves. It's paranormal.
That's right. And don't forget that you can get Steve's books are mentioned in the first 2 pages of the Supernatural magazine.
Yeah, any information, go to Supernatural magazine, and I think there's about 3 articles at least from Steve, so you can have a look and read up. Thank you so much, Steve, and we'll see you again soon.
I apologise, audio.
That's okay. It's been
Spider-Man.
fascinating. Thank you so much.
Right, Lara, that was fascinating, wasn't it?
I know. Apart from the, I grew up hiding behind the sofa with the Daleks coming on the TV. Because I did say that, with Doctor Who. But I thought he was fascinating. He talks a lot of sense, Steve, right? And it's refreshing to hear somebody that has a no-nonsense approach to the ghost hunting industry.
And so, of course, next week, you've got a very interesting interview. Richard Spazoff, I think I said that name right, who's an angelic intuitive medium.
Oh, Richard's lovely. Guys, you're watching right now. You need to show up for Richard next week. He has a very long, interesting career. And don't even talk about the mafia wives that he teaches dancing to in Vegas. Okay, so
that's the first question.
Was that the first question?
The first question. So, what's this about Vegas?
No, he's a very talented guy. You'll love him. He's just got one of those voices as well that you just want to just relax to and meditate to, right? He does. He is very intuitive, very gifted man, and he's got a wealth of talent, all right? And he's fascinating. You need to show up for it, guys. So we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Fantastic. Look forward to it. Have a good week, everyone. Stay safe.
Bye now. Bye.